Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first official day of the Soup Club.
So Soup Club is where we get the soup at lunch and we talk about it. My opinion was that I enjoyed the broth. It was too thin. I didn't get enough of it.
The spice is actually healthy because we're all sweet today. That's no more true. That's why.
I give it a 3 out of 5 stars.
5 spoons. I give this a solid 3.75.
3 spoons. Soup Troupe is really inclusive, and Soup Troupe is a place where everybody can just come and talk about soup when it's good and also complain about soup when it's bad, because we all deserve a good bowl of soup in our lives.
Danny and Soup Troupe! I'm Danny.
And I'm Danny. 1, 2, 3.
We're here for you!
It's gonna be really hot.
Thank you, Soup Troupe.
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 My name is Danny.
And I'm Danny, and welcome to Soup Troupe Online.
Oh, hi there.
Oh, hi! Hi!
What's up? Hello.
Hi! Hi!
Guys, I'm so excited to be on Soup Troupe.
Hello!
Hi! Hey!
Hey.
It's me!
Hi! Hey!
Yeah.
Hi, guys! Hi!
It's me.
Hi!
Happy Soup Year!
Hi!
Hi!
Hello, everybody. My name is Danny.
I'm Danny, and welcome to Soup Troupe Online.
We are so excited for this episode, you guys. We are on big number 32. How crazy. For those of you who are just joining us and you're asking, what is Soup Troupe? Well, I'll tell you. Soup Troupe was founded at Frenchwoods Festival for the Performing Arts, which is an upstate sleepaway camp by my work husband, Cole Wright Shaner, and I. And we decided that there was not a safe space to talk about the fantastic soups every day. And so we created that place where people could come and talk about taste, texture, viscosity, presentation, all of the important soup words. And during the pandemic, when we moved our platform online, co-president and I, Dani Wergiles, decided to move our platform to StreamYard and to YouTube to interview some incredible Broadway guests. And we've been so lucky to do all of these episodes for you guys. This episode in particular is crazy. We have 2 wonderful guests, and we are so excited.
Danny, I have a question for you. As the weather is getting warmer and we are moving into the spring season, I want to ask you, what is your opinion on the phrase soup season?
That's a great question, and one that is best answered when I cite our first premier guest, Purely Burger, who said that there is no soup season. Soup is, a meal. Soup is not an appetizer. Soup is not a side. Soup is its own thing, and it needs to be, represented and appreciated in the way it is not currently. So I think that soup season, there are definitely seasons of soup. Don't get me wrong. I want a cold gazpacho in the summertime, and I want a nice broccoli cheddar in the winter. But I think that soup itself is an all year round thing. What do you think?
I would have to agree with you. We had talked about this a long time ago, but I wanted to bring it back up because soup season is something that really is a little bit disheartening to me, because I think soup can be enjoyed in any season, and soup should be enjoyed in any season, regardless of the weather. I think that soup truly is something that can be enjoyed whenever, wherever. It's something that is from the heart and also warms your heart.
Wow. That was stunning. Well, that is a great segue, if not any, to introduce our first guest of today's episode. We are so excited to welcome Ms. Rachel Resheff. You, of course, know her from Broadway's Fish in the Dark, Mary Poppins, Billy Elliot, Shrek, The People in the Picture. She's insane. She's done The Escort, Friends from College, 7 Seconds, so many things. I had the privilege of working on with her at 54 Below on my musical Hide and Seek. And we are so excited to welcome Rachel Resheff.
Hello!
Welcome. We're so happy to have you here on Soup Troop.
Thank you for having me. I'm just so excited to be here. You don't even know. I'm just so excited.
So, Rachel, our first question that we like to ask all of our guests is, what is your favorite soup memory?
Okay. I feel like I probably can't pinpoint one specific memory because soup was my favorite food throughout my entire childhood, which is like why I'm so excited to be part of this day. But I think it must just be kind of like my childhood with soup. Like that is my kind of memory of soup, is associating it with every show that I did. Each theater, there was like a specific location where I would get soup and I would get a similar soup. So if I was doing Shrek, it was the Cosmic Diner, and there was the chicken soup, and that like changed over time. That was another thing. So I kind of spotted the difference. There was, of course, Hale and Hearty, which is iconic forever. There was Junior's, of course, which is just like the best matzo ball soup. So I don't know. And even like when I did children's theater before I started doing like professional shows, up the block was this Greek restaurant where they had such good lobster bisque, and I like still remember how it tastes. So I feel like I always will associate every kind of theater experience in my life with some form of soup.
I love that. To add on to that, I have a soup memory of my own of Rachel Resheff. I think you know what this is.
I think so. I'm not positive.
The first time we ever met was like a strange sequence of events, but then we met.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to some diner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was the one on like 68th Street.
Mm-hmm. And you had just done like a matinee, and you were about to do an evening, and I was like, oh, she's probably so hungry. And you just got like a cup of matzo ball soup.
Oh my God.
I was like 14, and I was like, oh, that's Broadway. That's what that, like.
Yeah, they just eat matzo ball soup. No, I think throughout my childhood and most of my life, I believed that like soup, that is I would say like a bowl of soup is a meal. I mean, I don't know if I feel this now, but like a bowl of soup can be a meal if it's hearty enough. A cup of soup, probably not a meal. But my feeling is just that like, depending on the soup, it can contain every food group. So if it's something like matzo ball soup, which has some starches, some vegetables, some chicken, you know, I'd say it can be a full meal.
Yeah,
Of course.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know, growing up on Broadway, you were in so many incredible shows. Do you have a favorite, and why? And were there any soups in particular that were your favorite in conjunction to that show?
Okay, so I would say that I've always said that Mary Poppins was my favorite show just because it was like so magical and truly just the most fun. All the kids had so much fun, and we were in the entire show, and it was just pure magic. And I'd say my soup association with Mary Poppins is probably Junior's, either the pea soup or the matzo ball soup. But also I'd say Fish in the Dark holds kind of a special place in my heart. Because I was a teenager and I was the only kid in the cast, and everyone was just so loving towards me. And it was kind of while I was transitioning into high school, and it was such a specific time. And there was a Hale and Hearty right near there, even if it wasn't kind of directly around the normal area. It was a little bit, it was like 48th between 6th and 7th. So a little bit more corporate area, but there was a Hale and Hearty. And I'd say maybe like the broken lasagna soup. Have you ever had that from Hale and Hearty?
No.
It's crazy.
I have had it.
You've had it?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I know I must say that I was like vegan for a while. Now I'm no longer vegan, but I'm dairy free, so I don't eat this anymore, which is sad to me, but it's kind of like what it sounds like. It's so good.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it like being a stage actor and then translating your work to the screen? And are there any craft service soups that you've ever had?
Oh, wow. I don't think so. I don't associate any film experience with soup. Yeah, I'd say no. But to answer the first part of the question, I think it's mostly like the first thing I ever did actually before I did any Broadway things or off Broadway, whatever, was a film. And so I kind of like, even though a lot of my childhood was theater, I kind of started with film. And I think just from that experience learned that everything is just real and how to be still. It's a lot about like stillness, I think. I learned on that first film, which I carried with me. But then everything else was like, people always talk about like bringing it in and being small and blah, 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 which I think is like something to keep in mind, but it's mostly kind of just like channeling that same energy that you channel for the stage and still channel it without being like comatose.
Yeah, I love that. Was that first movie Three Backyards? Is that...
Yes, with Eric. That's how I met him. I was 8 years old.
Yes.
And yeah, that was my first.
Obsessed. I was not in that movie, but I was an extra in like the airport scene. And
oh my gosh.
You cannot see me, but there was like a shot where like the transition into that scene was like blurry, and like there's a little boy, and I was the only little boy there. So
oh my god.
Like a blurred head, and I know it's mine, and I'm obsessed.
Like my debut.
So I should just interview myself, I guess. You are a student at Harvard, which is insane. So what is it like juggling schoolwork and the arts? And are there any delicious soups on campus at Harvard?
I'd say there actually are. So it wasn't too difficult for me the first year balancing both, just because I had done it my entire life, basically since like third grade. I was kind of always balancing school and my outside arts life. So it wasn't too difficult, other than the fact that Harvard is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the rest of my life is here. So that was some schlepping here. Maybe also kind of figuring out, because I was a freshman before we were told to leave, obviously because of this pandemic. But I think that there was a little bit of just figuring out like what that was going to look like and how I was going to create a full life there while also keeping the things that I loved here. In terms of soup, there's like a good, I'm not usually one for vegetable soup, but there's like a good kind of harvest autumn vegetable soup. Not that the Harvard dining services is Harvard is not known for its dining services, but they do make a good soup, and maybe sometimes some like lentils involved there. Yeah.
A nice vegetable lentil. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty good.
Wow. Well, now is the time of the episode in which we have to go to our question and answer session. If you have questions for Rachel Resheff, leave them in the comments below, and we will try to get to as many as we can. This first one comes from Maeve, who asked, what is your favorite Shrek movie, and what soup you think your favorite character would love?
Wow. I haven't seen the Shrek movies in a while, so I don't think I can say this. Maybe that's something I should be ashamed of, but I don't know if I can say this with confidence. So I don't think I'm going to pick one. I might go with the first one. What happened? Do you guys remember what happens in the other ones?
Shrek the Halls I have down to a science.
Shrek the Halls! Never. I don't know if I ever saw Shrek the Halls.
So good.
I vaguely remember the second one being my favorite. We're going to go with the second one. And I would say, I'd say Shrek would probably like a tomato soup. Maybe that might actually be not correct. Or no, like a French onion soup. That makes so much sense because of the onions, the layers, that quote. Yeah, yes. Maybe French onion.
Absolutely. This next one comes from Kendall, who says, an omelet? No, a souplet. If you had to change the base of an omelet from eggs to a soup of your choice, what soup would you choose?
Wow. Okay, wait. Let me try to understand this question. If you had to change the base of an omelet, so instead of eggs, I see. That doesn't sound like that. I don't think it would taste very good. I feel like it'd be like because usually an omelet, I think I would have like nutritional yeast and spinach and like some avocado over it. So that with a soup, I don't know how that would work, but maybe I'll go with like I think maybe like a kind of coconut broth, like a coconut milk situation, with some lentils. I'm acting like I really like lentils. I actually don't. But I keep mentioning them. But yeah, I think that maybe that could work its way in there somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I kept the question on the screen because what I'm obsessed with about it is that it's not like it's called an egglet, but instead of an omelet, it's a souplet.
Right. Of course. Whatever the first part of the word means.
I enjoyed it. This next one comes from Alaya, who asks, "What soup would make the best nail polish?"
Probably, I guess that depends on what you're into for your nails. I would think maybe, something creamy, like something like New England clam chowder would probably make, yeah, and then maybe the kind of bits in there could act as some sort of design.
Yeah.
Over the cream color.
You heard it here first. New England clam chowder.
New England clam chowder.
This next question comes from Charlie, who asks, "You have been on a vision quest to find the spring of eternal youth. It has taken years, and you finally come across the flowing fountain of soup. But the question remains, which soup?"
Wow. I'm just going to read it one more time. It is taking the flowing fountain of soup. And this will in turn lead me to the spring of eternal youth. Is that what's going on?
It sounds
okay. I feel like in this case, maybe like a something also autumny, like not butternut squash. That actually doesn't sound like it would lead you to the spring of eternity, but I'm thinking of something that's like light and you know what I mean? Like something that's not too heavy. I'm gonna go with butternut squash, even though that's not what I want, but that's like the vibe that I'm going for.
Yeah,
love it.
Absolutely. We have time for one more question, and it comes again from Maeve, who says, "Going to college far from home is the worst at times. What soup reminds you most of home?"
Oh, probably, I guess matzo ball soup, just because of being Jewish and growing up with matzo ball soup and at holidays. So I guess so. Not that to say that that's what I've been having in my year of going to college from home, but I would say that's pretty homey.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, that is all the time we have today for our Q&A session with Rachel. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you here. Everyone at home, join us in a 1, 2, 3. We're here for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, guys.
That was Rachel Resheff. You simply must follow her on all of the social medias at Rachel Resheff. We are so excited to see what she does post-pandemic and beyond, and we are so happy to have had her today. This next guest, we are also crazily excited to have on this show. It is, of course, Heath Saunders. You know him from Great Comet, Alice by Heart, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Jesus Christ Superstar Live, and so many more things. So please put your snaps together for Heath Saunders.
Hello, welcome to SOUP Troupe.
Hi.
We're so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
So let's just hop right in.
Okay.
What is your favorite soup memory?
Now this is a doozy of a question. I think that I have to. As I've been just thinking about all the soups in my life, I've been trying to think of which ones are most important and when and how I'll bring them up. But I think that most importantly, because when I think about soup, I was like, I don't really eat a lot of soup, and then I realized that that's a lie, because a iconic home soup for me, I'm from the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, is pho. Like the Vietnamese noodle soup, and that is like the like taste of home soup for me is pho, and mostly because I have not found good pho anywhere except for Seattle. Basically, like every other pho place I've been to on the East Coast has been like, yeah, it's okay, but it's never on East Coast. I much prefer the ramen options here, which is reminiscent but not the same. And so I have I would have to say pho, like rare beef pho. It's like
Yeah.
I love
reminds me of home. It's
Yeah.
the best.
so good.
You blew my mind a little because I've only ever had East Coast pho.
Yeah, you're missing out. Well, I'm sure that there's good pho on the East Coast somewhere. I just like the thing is that like Seattle is like there's like a really present Vietnamese American culture there. So pho, there's all these punny pho places. They're all like, what the pho? But every corner is like a random pho pun, and you're like, okay, I'm okay with this.
Wow.
I went to get pho recently, and there was a sign that said, bathrooms are pho customers only.
Honestly, we love a pho pun. Mostly because people say it wrong every single time. You know, if you haven't had it.
Yeah. I love
that.
So we know, so we know that you are a diversity dramaturg. So can you talk a little bit about what that entails? And if there was a soup that could change the world, what soup do you think that could be?
Oh Lord. Okay, so what diversity dramaturgy is in as simple a way as possible is it's the study of the formatting of storytelling, so the structure of storytelling, but as examined through the bodies that we use to tell those stories. Because I'm a big proponent of the idea that actually authenticity, the notion of authenticity, is all fake news. Like it's not going to be helpful to us conceptually, because at no point, if what you're looking for is authenticity, then what you're looking for is essentially reality television. And what we know about reality television is that's not even real anyway. So it's not like authenticity is our goal when we're telling stories. So as a diversity dramaturg, what I tend to do is I go in and I work with writers and or producers or people who are working on a show, and I talk to them about the choices that they're making actively to tell stories about authenticity. Because often what will happen is producers and or writers, especially those who have white bodies themselves and or have male coded bodies themselves, tend to think about they tend to be like, yes, I want to find an authentic Black person. They're like, oh, a Black person should be in this show, without recognizing that really what's at play when you put a Black person on stage, a Black body on stage, is actually the gender presentation of that body and the color of that body's skin. Those things actually have a lot to do with the impact of the story that you're telling. So if you have a Black character in a show, but you're choosing to cast somebody who looks like me, I'm a light-skinned Black person, that actually tells a story that you are actively choosing. And a lot of people tend to like try and take their hands off the wheel and be like, oh, I'm not actually going to make choices about that. And when we don't make choices about things like that, that's actually where the systemic racism will actually end up unfolding in the storytelling in ways that we don't intend. I don't know if you've, I wrote a whole article about Hairspray that is sort of targeting Hairspray about this, which is a huge piece of this concept, because we tend to think about sort of Blackness as a monolith rather than the sort of complexity associated with that. So what I do is I basically go in and I talk to people about the bodies they're choosing to use and the bodies that they're not choosing to use. And I encourage people to be specific with the choices that they're making and talk about the implications of them.
Yeah.
Now, in relation to how I would talk about soup changing the world in regards to that, I think that I would have to, this is going to be a crazy, bold statement, so stop me if I get crazy. But I think that not to like belabor the point of pho, but understanding sort of the difference between different cultures' soups, especially when it comes to Asian cultures, I think is a really important piece of dismantling these understandings that we have about racism. And because again, when we think about Asian American, I always talk about a somewhat apocryphal story from my youth is I was never being the only Black person in basically, I grew up outside of Seattle in basically me and my siblings were the only Black people that I really knew. So I actually learned, before I learned that I was Black, I learned that I wasn't Asian. And I knew very young that like mixing up Chinese and Japanese people is like not the move. They are totally, and like even inside of that, China is huge. Like there's no, like Chinese American is a totally misunderstood concept, because we just think of like, oh yes, Asian Americans. And it's like, okay, so Vietnamese people, South Korean versus North Korean is a different thing. When we get into, you know, Thai or Cambodia, these are different people. They all have very different experiences. And that's not even like going into the, anyway. So my point is that understanding the difference between pho and ramen is going to change the world. So
I love that.
I love
We just want to say thank you. As young theater people, what you're doing is so important, and it really gives us so much hope in the industry. And knowing that there are people like you out there really makes me personally very excited to go into this industry and hopefully be able to change things up. So thank you again for everything that you're doing. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, cheers. I appreciate that, I suppose. And, you know, excitement is good.
So you have done so many incredible things as an artist. Not only are you an actor, a lyricist, a composer, and a creator, but you do so many wonderful things in the arts. So what keeps you motivated to do so many different things? And are there any soups that help you in your creative process?
I love the fact that there's like a question and then the soup nature of the question, and trying to like keep those two things in my head at the same time is a trip. So I would say that as an artist, my primary concern and sort of my primary like area of focus is the concept of identity. And like, I'm really, really fascinated by the notion of internal identity versus external identity. So a lot of what I'm interested, and this is actually largely, I think, due to my training being primarily as an actor. And I say this as a person who is on the spectrum. So I have a really interesting experience of self in relation to the stories that are told about my body, because my experience of myself and like how other people experience me are not at all aligned. And this has been fascinating for me since I was a young child, where I just simply didn't understand like social dynamics associated with me, because I didn't understand how I was impacting them based on how people were seeing me and perceiving what was going on inside of me. So as a creative, all of the work that I do tends to be refracted through that question, which is like, who am I inside, and who is the me that you see? And like, that's what I'm interested in telling stories as a writer. That's what I'm interested in working on as a musician. And that's sort of what I practice as an actor, is like, what does it mean to sort of embody something that isn't who I am? So because that my drive is so unrelated to any specific kind of art, I don't tend to, it's not like I don't feel like myself when I'm not acting, or I don't feel like myself when I'm not writing. It's regardless of where I am or what's going on, that's always going to be the experience of that thing. And here's how I'm going to make this about soup. So I think, you know how if you like put a bunch of soup in a blender, your actual ability to know what's in the soup is not until you actually taste it.
Yeah.
So like, you can assess things based on like the color of the soup. You could be like, yes, this has tomatoes in it because like it's red. But there are soups that look like tomato soup that are not in fact tomato soup. For example, a nice lobster red pepper bisque might look like a tomato soup when in fact it is not. And I think that what I'm interested by is that soup is a food that actually is really hard to assess based explicitly on what it looks like. There are soups that tell you what they are as you're like looking at them. Chili is going to always look like chili, and you're like, oh, I can see what's in chili. But there's a lot of soups that actually carry with them a lot of flavor and depth and complexity that you can't actually know about until you taste them. And I think that that's like a huge piece about like how I think about identity, which is like, you can't actually know what somebody is because of how you see them. Their body actually is a very, very, very small part of the story that makes somebody who they are. And so that is sort of how I think about how soup will help us think about identity in relation to art.
I love that.
Amazing.
So
It seems like I've prepared all these answers, and I'm really just like off the cuff, being like, I had no idea what this was going to be. I was like, I'm going to go on to Soup Troop. I don't know. So this is, you're seeing me truly like making it up as we go along.
I love it. You're killing the game. Everything. Like, I'm feeling so inspired by the way that you talk about soup. Like maybe so. You want to take my role? Go for it.
So we know that you can do a drunk girl wink.
She went after my resume. I see it.
So we need to see that, if that's okay with you. If you were a drunk girl, what soup would cure your hangover? But first, the wink.
I'm actually. I want to do the beginning and then I'll. So I think that if I were to do a hangover cure soup, I think it'd probably be like a loaded baked potato soup, like something that's very hefty, lot of like a greasiness to it. Again, like your good hangover breakfast. That kind of thing is, I think, going to be your friend. In relation to what my drunk girl wing actually is. So this is my most asked for special skill, which is weird because I put it on my resume as a joke when I was in the middle of college, and I was like, I'm just going to put this on my resume as a joke. And the reason that it's on my resume, and I'm like, resumes are like my enemy. I think that they're again, because I'm obsessed with identity and the fact that you can't tell what anybody is based on like what they are on paper. So resumes are of course my enemy. I never know what I'm getting from somebody. I look at somebody's resume and I'm like, sure, okay, so they did X, Y, and Z thing. I don't know anything about the people who cast them in that thing. I don't know anything about resumes tell me very little. So I added drunk girl wink because I always, my advice to people whenever I'm when I'm giving like actor advice is always like, what is going to be helpful on your resume are conversation points, basically things that allow you to have a conversation with the creative team, because that's where you're going to be able to be yourself. And that's really what you're bringing into an audition room. So the drunk girl wink has always given me this opportunity to have a conversation, because people are like, what is that? What are you doing? And it gives me an opportunity to do a monologue, which is essentially looks like this, so you have to imagine, I have to like set the scene, which is like, I'm going to be less particular about the drink, because I would have been like, let's say that I'm drinking a whiskey, mostly because I don't want to like give a gendered drink. Earlier, I would have been like, oh, it's like a Cosmo because it's the drunk girl wink, but I could be drinking anything. Like I have a beer and I'm at a club or a bar and I see a person who I want to get their attention, because apparently winking at somebody is a thing that people do. I can't imagine under any circumstances thinking that winking at somebody is going to be a good idea. But I've had a lot of drinks, so I am really feeling really confident, but I am not feeling confident about my ability to make my face do the things that I mean it to. So this ends up being the drunk girl wink, is me trying to get the attention of somebody while I'm at a bar. And it looks like this. That's the drunk girl wig.
That was everything I needed and more. I wrote the question and I was like, I have no idea what this is going to be, but I need to see it. And that is everything I could have ever asked for and more. So thank you for that.
Well,
Really.
I'm pretty sure that it has literally gotten me jobs before, just because it's like, it's a conversation point. It allows me to be like, okay, I'm sorry, this is this bizarre thing that I do that I made up when I was drunk at a party once. So
I love that. Incredible. Insane. I love it. All right. Well, now is the time of our episode where we will be playing a new game called Oh, the Soups You Can Soup. Just so you know, the name was made up by Danny Feldman.
Very excited about this game. This is the first time we're playing it.
Okay.
So in this game, we will give you a situation, a day, if you will, and you will tell us what is the perfect soup for that occasion.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Okay.
Do you have any questions before we begin?
It seems pretty self-explanatory. It'll
All right.
figure itself out.
We will start. Oh, the soups you can soup. And away we go. Your wedding.
Okay, first off, the likelihood that I have a wedding is very small, and I don't know if you've gotten anything about me, but I'm like a weird identity philosopher, and the notion of weddings is like a challenge for me. So my personal wedding probably doesn't exist. A wedding conceptually, the platonic ideal of a wedding, I think I would want something actually very light, because you don't want any of your guests to feel like they're super heavy on the dance floor. So I would probably go with like a miso soup.
Yeah. Okay. The opening night of Newton's Cradle on Broadway.
Opening night of Newton's Cradle on Broadway. I think that would have to go to pho, because Newton's Cradle is so important to me, like spiritually, that it's like I would want it to be something that's like a hugely identified, iconic thing for me personally. So I would give pho.
I love that. Next, we have On the Subway.
On the Subway. I think that, I referenced the roasted red pepper and lobster bisque, and I'm specifically thinking a very specific roasted red pepper and lobster bisque, which actually I got in Chicago from a place called Cafe Zupa's, which Cafe Zupa's is this amazing soup and sandwich and salad place. There's like 3 of them in the greater Chicago area, and they have one of the best roasted red pepper and lobster bisques, and that is what I wish I could drink on the Subway. Is this like it's like warm, and it's like, yeah, it's a good meal.
Yeah. Wow. The Tony Awards.
I think I would go with French onion soup with that one. We're thinking something that's like really elevated, that feels expensive. Every time I see French onion soup on a menu, I immediately feel like I'm like more in a like bougier place than I was before. And I think that it's because like the actual process of making French onion soup is so involved and takes such a long time that I just feel like it feels bougie. So I think I would associate that with the Tony Awards.
Next, we have Dinner with Your Idol.
Oh my God. Dinner with my idol. So soup as a meeting someone you're a big fan of, I think is a dangerous food because it's a little bit like going on a first date and like trying to like eat soup. Not that you can't do that, but it's like trying to like be interesting and attractive and amusing while eating soup can be a little bit of a challenge. So not to say that I don't want it, but I think that I would probably go super basic, which is like I'm not going to try and I would probably go with like a chicken noodle soup, just because I don't want it to be anything shocking to me or to them. I want them to have sort of a concept of what it is. I don't want it to be a conversation point, really. So that's what I'd go with that.
Yeah. Understandable. Absolutely. I will say every time I have soup, it is a conversation point.
That makes sense to me. I'm getting that from the vibe of this. I'm surprised that you're not eating soup right now, honestly.
You should be.
If anyone can eat soup when meeting their idol, it's you. So I think you could do it.
And our final prompt for this game is winning the lottery.
Oh, I think that there's got to be some sort of soup that's like the most expensive soup in the world, that's like weirdly like has gold inside of it or something, where you're like, I'm eating gold flakes. It's like totally unnecessary. Who knows if it tastes good at all, but it's like just so obnoxious. That feels like the move.
Yeah.
If like, you have a sudden influx of, not that I'm like here for wasting money, because like boo capitalism, but like it just feels like that's what I would associate with the sudden windfall, as it were.
Yes.
Something ridiculous and bougie.
Well, Heath, congratulations! You have won. Oh, the soups you can soup.
Do I win anything? Is this like winning the lottery? Do I get soup?
You win a lot of pride and eternal joy, and your eternal support from the Soup Troupe Online family.
Nice.
Of course.
So honestly, basically, you just won the lottery.
So essentially,
I was gonna say,
essentially the lottery.
Worth more than money.
So now we have to go to the time of episode where we introduce our question and answer session. If you have questions for Heath, leave them in the comments below, and we will try to get to as many as we can. This first one comes from Alaya, who says, take your favorite soup, Isolate your favorite ingredient. Now throw it out. You can't have that ingredient anymore. What do you replace it with?
Okay, so I think because we have to do pho, I think that my favorite ingredient in a given bowl of pho is probably the bean sprouts. It's hard because I would say the basil is super specific, but I feel like if you take the basil out, then you're no longer really eating pho. So I think you could take out the bean sprouts, and I'd probably replace them with some sort of mushroom, like a shiitake mushroom, which sometimes comes in the soup anyway. But I just like soup mushrooms make me very happy. Like, but not like bell. I don't want them to be like stringy like strings, not like
Of course.
Yeah. So replace bean sprouts with mushrooms. That's what I'm doing.
I love that.
Yeah, it's perfect. And this next one comes from LMM123, who says, "Good morning. The first thing you do when you wake up is brush your teeth and take your vitamins. But your vitamins are made of soup. What soup vitamin would give you the superpowers for the day?"
I'm gonna go with miso on that one because miso always feels like a superfood to me, and like it's also like not a the miso out of many. There are many soups in the world, and miso soup, like a basic miso soup, is like a non-meal. It like just does it. Like the idea, the many soups can be a meal. Miso is not one of those things for me. If somebody's only eating miso soup for their meal, I'm like, are you okay? But I do feel like it has like superfood quality to it. I don't actually know that that's true. I am not a doctor, and I cannot be held responsible for somebody being like, yes, I will drink miso soup in the morning instead of vitamins. No.
We have time for one more question, and it comes from Kendall, but I'm not a Harry Potter fan, so Danny, you're going to have to ask the question.
If you're a Harry Potter fan, what soup would be a Horcrux?
Oh, Lord. What soup could be a Horcrux? One where the amount of self-control I'm doing to not dismantle the notion of being a Harry Potter fan right now is really impressive for me personally. But in the event that I don't care about any of that, what Horcrux would be a good soup? You know, I feel like there's sort of two ways you could go with this. You could either like go like for something that's very strange, like a really weird soup where you're like, I don't know. The only thing that's coming to mind is turnips in my head right now. And like the idea of a turnip soup is like sort of weird. So that feels like a weird surreal vegetable soup that's like, you know, it's just like pure white. And you're like, this is just parsnips and turnips and like potato. And you're like, what is that? That's like sort of like the weird, or you could like hide in plain sight and do like broccoli cheddar and be like, oh, there's a broccoli cheddar everywhere. So it wouldn't seem like anything special. So if you're going to hide a piece of your soul in a soup, do you want to hide it someplace that's like inside of a vault or in plain sight?
It's true.
Wow.
Well, that is all the time we have for our section today. Heath, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. You are such an inspiration to us, and we are so grateful to have spoken to you about soup today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, everyone at home, please join us in wishing Heath a 1, 2, 3. We're
here for you.
And I feel it. Thank you.
Thank you, Heath. That was Heath Saunders. You simply must follow them on everything at Feel the Heath. We are so lucky to have had him on the show today. It was such an honor. Well, this has been such an amazing episode of Soup Troupe Online, my friends. If you liked this episode, which I hope you did, you should follow us on Instagram at Soup Troupe Official, like us on Facebook at Soup Troupe Online, and or like and subscribe to this video and channel down below.
We are so excited to be named the Broadway World Favorite Live Stream. You can read more about Soup Troupe Online on BroadwayWorld.com. The link is in the description below.
We would like to thank our partners at Brodo Broth Company. If you are in the Manhattan area and you're looking for some soup, some broth, you should go check out Brodo Broth Company. And if you're anywhere in the United States, you can get a frozen broth shipped directly to your door. That is insane right there. That being said, this has been a wonderful episode. My name is Danny.
And I'm Danny, and this has been Soup Troop Online. Everyone at home, join us in a 1, 2, 3. Have a super day. Love you guys. See you next week.
Hey, Manny.
S for sweet, sweet soup we eat at lunch all day, all week. O for always join us after lunch in the canteen. Q for community to come together through any room.
Please welcome members from every troop on every